politics of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea became officially independent from Spain on October 12, 1968. Since then, the country has had two presidents, Francisco Macías Ngma, the former mayor of Mongomo under the Spanish colonial government, and Teodoro Obiang Ngma Masogo Macías's nephew, who has ruled since 1979 when he staged a military coup d'état and executed Macías. The 1982 Constitution of Equatorial Guinea gives Obiang extensive powers, including naming and dismissing members of the cabinet, making laws by decree, dissolving the Chamber of Representatives, negotiating and ratifying treaties and calling legislative elections. Obiang retains his role as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of Defense, and he maintains close supervision of the military activity. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President and operates under powers designated by the President. The Prime Minister coordinates government activities in areas other than foreign affairs, national defense and security. After the accession of Macías to power, political activity largely ceased in Equatorial Guinea. Opposition figures who lived among the exile communities in Spain and elsewhere agitated for reforms. Some of them had been employed in the Macías and Obiang governments. After political activities in Equatorial Guinea were legalized in the early 1990s, some opposition leaders returned to test the waters, but repressive actions have continued sporadically. With the prodding of the United Nations, the United States, Spain, and other donor countries, the government undertook an electoral census in 1995. Freely contested municipal elections, the country's first, were held in September. Most observers agree that the elections themselves were relatively free and transparent and that the opposition parties garnered between 2/3 and 3/4 of the total vote. The government delayed announcement of the results and then claimed a highly dubious 52 victory overall and the capture of 19 of 27 municipal councils. Malabo's council went to the opposition. In early January 1996, Obiang called presidential elections to be held in 6 weeks. The campaign was marred by allegations of fraud, and most of the other candidates withdrew in the final week. Obiang claimed re-election with 98% of the vote. International observers agreed the election was not free or fair. In an attempt to ameliorate his critics, Obiang announced his new cabinet, giving minor portfolios to some people identified by the government as being opposition figures. Since independence, the two presidents Macías and Obiang have been the dominant political forces in Equatorial Guinea. Since 1979, President Obiang has been constrained only by a need to maintain a consensus among his advisors and political supporters, most of whom are drawn from the Ngma family in Mongomo, in the eastern part of Rio Muni. The Ngma family is part of the Asangi subclan of the Fang. Alleged coup attempts in 1981 and 1983 raised little sympathy among the populace. President Obiang's rule, in which schools were permitted to reopen and primary education expanded, and public utilities and roads restored, compares favorably with Macías' tyranny and terror. It has been criticized for not implementing genuine democratic reforms. Corruption and a dysfunctional judicial system disrupt the development of Equatorial Guinea's economy and society. In March 2001, the president appointed a new prime minister, Candido Mwada Temarivas, and replaced several ministers perceived to be especially corrupt. However, the government budget still does not include all revenues and expenditures. The United Nations Development Programme has proposed a broad governance reform program, but the Equatorial Guinean government was not moving rapidly to implement it. Although Equatorial Guinea lacks a well-established democratic tradition comparable to the developed democracies of the West, it has progressed toward developing a participatory political system out of the anarchic, chaotic, and repressive conditions of the Macías years. In power since 1979, the Obiang government has made little progress in stimulating the economy. Extremely serious health and sanitary conditions persist, and the educational system remains in desperate condition. Although the abuses and atrocities that characterized the Macías years have been eliminated, effective rule of law does not exist. Religious freedom is tolerated. On December 15, 2002, Equatorial Guinea's four main opposition parties withdrew from the country's presidential election. Abang won an election widely considered fraudulent by members of the Western press. According to a March 2004 BBC profile, politics within the country are currently dominated by tensions between Abang's son Teodoro, known by the nickname Teodorin, meaning Little Teodoro, and other close relatives with powerful positions in the security forces. The tension may be rooted in a power shift arising from the dramatic increase since 1997 in oil production. A November 2004 report named Mark Thatcher as a financial backer of a March 2004 attempt to topple Abang organized by Simon Mann. Various accounts also name Britain's MI6, the CIA, and Spain as having been tacit supporters of the coup attempt. Nevertheless, an Amnesty International report on the ensuing trial highlights the government's failure to demonstrate in court that the alleged coup attempt had ever actually taken place. Executive Branch. The 1982 Constitution of Equatorial Guinea gives the president extensive powers, including naming and dismissing members of the cabinet, making laws by decree, dissolving the Chamber of Representatives, negotiating and ratifying treaties, and calling legislative elections. The president retains his role as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of Defense, and he maintains close supervision of the military activity. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President and operates under powers designated by the President. The Prime Minister coordinates government activities in areas other than foreign affairs, national defense and security. Teodoro Obiang Nguemasogho seized power in a military coup. He is elected by popular vote to a 7-year term. Another official branch of the government is the State Council. The State Council's main function is to serve as caretaker in case of death or physical incapacity of the President. It comprises the following ex officio members: the President of the Republic, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, the President of the National Assembly, and the Chairman of the Social and Economic Council. Legislative Branch. The Chamber of People's Representatives Cámara de Representantes del Pueblo has 100 members, elected for a 5-year term by proportional representation in multi-member constituencies. Equatorial Guinea is a one-party dominant state. This means that only one political party, the Democratic Party of Equatorial Guinea, is in fact allowed to hold effective power. Although minor parties are allowed, they are de facto required to accept the leadership of the dominant party. Judicial Branch. The judicial system follows similar administrative levels. At the top are the President and his judicial advisors, the Supreme Court. In descending rank are the appeals courts, chief judges for the divisions, and local magistrates. Tribal laws and customs are honored in the formal court system when not in conflict with national law. The current court system, which often uses customary law, is a combination of traditional, civil, and military justice, and it operates in an ad hoc manner for lack of established procedures and experienced judicial personnel. Administrative divisions. Equatorial Guinea is divided in 7 provinces, provincias, singular provincia: Annobon, Bioko Norte, Bioko Sur, Centro Sur, KNTEM, Littoral, Will-NZAS. The President appoints the governors of the 7 provinces. Each province is divided administratively into districts and municipalities. The internal administrative system falls under the Ministry of Territorial Administration. Several other ministries are represented at the provincial and district levels. Membership in international organizations. Agency for the French-speaking Community. African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States. African Development Bank. Central African States Development Bank. Economic Community of Central African States. Economic Commission for Africa. Food and Agriculture Organization. Frank Zone. Group of 77. International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. International Civil Aviation Organization. International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement. International Development Association. International Fund for Agricultural Development. International Finance Corporation. International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. International Labour Organization. International Monetary Fund, International Maritime Organization, International Telecommunications Satellite Organization, International Criminal Police Organization, International Olympic Committee, International Telecommunication Union, Non-Aligned Movement, Observer, Organization of American States, Organization of African Unity, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Central African Customs and Economic Union, United Nations, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Universal Postal Union, World Health Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization, World Tourism Organization, Applicant, World Trade Organization,